And welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Go ahead and get back in here. And now this is something I really still have to get used to. But it's good. I like having multiple profiles in the one game installation. That way I can have one for testing and another one for the LP. And perhaps a third one just for plain old-fashioned general farting around. Okay, recent developments was the, I believe it was the Nuke Lander 1LV. And basically this was our landing vehicle, and the LV, of course, was the launch vehicle that lifted it. And as I recall correctly, I do believe that this didn't quite fare so well. Well, I did spend some time working on a new design, and the IP, or Interplanetary Lander 1, is what I came up with. And basically we've got our basic capsule and 2 RCS tanks there, and 3 more around the radial fuel tanks, on top of the radial fuel tanks. 6 fuel tanks in a radial arrangement of 2 high each, landing legs, fuel lines going into the engine, and the engine being this NERVA thing, this nuclear rocket engine thing. And that, I think, will do very nicely for a landing vehicle. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, but this nuclear rocket engine only has 60 of a thrust of 60. Yes, this is true, but look at the specific impulse in vacuum, 800. This means it is very fuel efficient. And since this stage doesn't have to lift off of Kerbin, we're fine. This thing doesn't have to lift off from Kerbin, so let's not expect it to perform like it does. Oh, for crying out loud. Now I have to load it back up again, because I don't want to try and put that piece back. There. So now it is time to build a launch vehicle into this thing. Okay. Let's see. Command and control. We have the advanced SAS up here, but I'm going to put a regular SAS down here to provide it with some additional torque, because it's going to need it for this lower stage thing. Let's see, where is that adapter thing? There it is. Now, use 2 large tanks of fuel here. Before I get much farther here, I think, yeah. Applying some struts here would be a good idea. Oh, you. Okay. Okay, that'll be good. All right, let's see. Hello. It just kind of wanted to disappear. Let's see, get this engine on here. It's 4. We'll make it 5. Throw that on here. All right. Just kind of squeeze in between the pixels here, and I hooked it up to itself. Cute. Yeah, that's better. Okay. That will do nicely. And while I'm at it, and then of course, there's these separator motors. There. And the way these will work is that on staging, they will fire for, I think it's 5 seconds with a thrust of 20. They will push this stuff out of the way quickly. So that's good. Okay. Looking good. Well, I say let's throw some stability enhancers on it. Go over the staging one more time, or even for the first time. Okay, that's not going to do. All right, this needs to come down here. Okay. There's this up here. Okay. All right, that looks good. And so let's have this IP Lander 1-LD launch vehicle. Interplanetary Lander 1 and launch vehicle. Yes, I know the name is incredibly original and so on, but hey, what the heck. I've never been good at coming up with names. Why else do you think the name of this channel is Self1? I couldn't think of anything else, so I took the word files and spelled it backwards. All right, let's give this a shot. See how this thing flies and see where we can take it. And yes, I have MacJeb in the co-pilot seat for informational sake. 1.9.2 has been released that specifically works with 0.17. And yes, I will also have smartass on tap for a little bit of occasional steering control, because sometimes it's the only thing that's going to keep a good flight from turning into a crash. All right. We have Sidlong Kerman in the pilot seat again today. Well, Sidlong, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get this thing in gear. And as usual, the frame rate goes through the floor on liftoff and gets better the farther we get away from things. The way this fuel tank thing is looking, it looks to me like I may need to do some work on that. It seems to be going all right. So far, the flight is nice and steady, but I haven't risked taking off the SAS yet. Okay, those separator motors were pretty good. All right, let's get our turn in gear. Okay, I think that's good for right now. Apoapsis is up to 58 kilometers. Let's get pitched over some more. In fact, cut the engine. Get pitched over horizontal. And let's have a look at things. Okay. Coming around the night side, and I've noticed in this version, when you're on the night side of a planet, you're not going to see diddly squat. It's freaking black at the pitch of night. All right, let's have a look at what we got here. All right, where are we at here? All right, let's switch back here. Give this thing a little bit of engine and RCS so it'll stabilize. And let's burn. We burn for orbit. Well, it looks like my staging isn't quite right if that is separated on its own. That little nuclear engine doesn't have a whole lot of thrust, but it can burn for a very long time on a little bit of fuel. And I'm going to pause for a minute. All right. We are nicely starting to settle into an orbit. It's not going as fast as some of the more powerful chemical rockets can do, but it will do very nicely just the same. Figure this little lander here, it has, on the landing stage there are 6 400-liter tanks, and on the ascent stage there are 2 400-liter tanks. So that's 1,600 liters of fuel. That's quite a bit, actually, especially when you put it into an engine with a specific impulse of 800. All right. Why is it that there seems to be something sort of familiar about this 3 nacelle design? I don't know. I've seen that kind of thing somewhere before. Okay. Periapsis is coming up. Let's pitch down a little bit more. Don't want to send the apoapsis very high. At least not yet. Also don't want to be pitching down too low. In fact, cut just a second here. Let's have a look outside. Oh, well, I don't think too low is going to be a problem. We need to just get this thing moving and pitched up, or we're going to crash. I may end up having to do a relaunch. Sid Long is once again crapping himself. And what started out to be a good flight is quickly turning into a let's not crash. Decelerating fairly quickly, but we're only 14,000 meters above the ground, or ocean. Still going 400 meters per second. This is not looking good. I'm getting ready to stage really quickly, just in case. This thing might actually be able to slow down. I don't think so. 100 meters per second, 1,000, 2,000 meters to go. Too much mass. And that right there showed me that the staging was wrong. Because when I staged just then, the 3 external lander stages should have jettisoned, and they didn't. So, we have another safe return. Now we are going to end the flight back to the VAB and find out what the heck is wrong with this thing. Oh, doggone it, I wish it wouldn't default to zooming in quite so fast and so far. See these radial decouplers. Should have gone. That goes. The nuclear engine lights up, and then these decouplers go. Take with it these tanks. And the bottom 3 RCS tanks. Okay. And we've got this decoupler here that would fire afterwards. Landing gear goes with those fuel tanks and RCS. As do the fuel lines. Now, speaking of fuel lines, I needed to check on this because it didn't quite seem right. Oh, now Wanda. Symmetry fail. Hooking it to itself fail. All right. All right, that'll work better. That will work a lot better. Double check the staging. Separator motors worked good. I think everything else is good to go. So, save this baby and launch it. And Sidlong is back. I'm beginning to wish that we could have somebody else besides Sidlong, because he's a wuss. All right, let's send this wuss into space. Something still isn't right about the fuel consumption. There's too many of these lit up at once. But we seem to be flying good in spite of that. Let's get our turn started. The separator motors are definitely good. They get that other stuff out of the way quickly. Less chance of having them collide with, say, an engine and knock it off. Okay. We'll start pitching over a little more. And yet more still. In fact, all the way. This lower stage is getting ready to burn out. Come on. Something break off here or what? Okay. Hold your damn course, for crying out loud. Go ahead and continue burning on through. I I think that was part of the mistake from last time. I started farting around and coasting to apoapsis when the descent would come too soon afterwards. And here we go, heading into the night side. You see what I mean about how frickin' dark it is on the night side of the planet these days. If you thought it was dark in 016, it's really dark in 017. Meanwhile, our periapsis is coming up slowly but surely, and this begins to take the shape of an orbit. All right. It's a slow process, but it works well and uses comparatively little fuel as long as you do it right and don't end up re-entering because you took too long to diddle around and get the engine started. Periapsis is almost positive, so we'll be good to go here. We're going to have somewhat of an eccentric orbit, but I don't care. It's an orbit. All right. Periapsis is very nearly up high enough. And that's good enough right there. It's a little bit lopsided for a parking orbit, but it will do. Now, let's see. I honestly, sincerely believe the ship can make it to there. It can make it to Duna. And it's just a matter of knowing when to leave. And that's going to be, see, there is a webpage that I found through the Kerbal Space Program forum. It's the Interactive Illustrated Interplanetary Guide and Calculator for KSP. It basically, you give it your origin, your destination, and the altitude of your parking orbit in kilometers, and it will tell you the necessary phase angle, ejection angle, and what your escape velocity is in meters per second. And according to that, basically, when the angle between Kerbin and Duna is about 44 degrees, would be a good time to launch. Well, that's part of it. Another part of it is the position in the orbit. That's minor. That's going to happen once every orbit. And meantime, let us warp time. Let us do the time warp again. And warp time ahead really fast. Apparently, I'm too low to warp time any faster. Well, yes, of course I am. All right. Fine. Just past apoapsis. Turn prograde. And we will bring the periapsis up. Probably bring the apoapsis up a little bit too, because I'm not aimed entirely right. And we'll get both numbers up above 250 kilometers. Alright, now just warp around to apoapsis again. Bring the periapsis up over 250. And then we can time warp as much as we want to, or at least a heck of a lot more than we could. Okay. There we go. Coming up. Not quite circular, but it'll be good enough. Not quite perfectly circular, but good enough. Oh, that's that lower stage, I guess. No, it's that other vehicle. It's oh, what's his name in it? I don't remember who. Somebody I decided to leave in orbit to serve as a clock. Now let's see how much time warp we can get away with. $480 kilometers to go any faster. Well, this is going to have to go faster. Okay, fine. We will get around apoapsis, raise the periapsis up, and we'll do this dance again and bring it up to, say, 500-kilometer orbit. Okay. We're going to burn this orbit all the way up to 500 this time. Maybe then we'll be able to time warp fast enough. And let me guess. After that, for the 100,000, it'll say it wants the orbit even higher. Okay. All right. Bring the periapsis up over 500. then we ought to be able to get a decent amount of time warp. It's basically this thing's going to have to orbit for what's going to amount to a couple of months before Duna is in the right position relative to Kerbal. Okay, it's there. Good enough. Okay. And time passes. Okay, I'm going to make a cut because I'm going to go ahead and boost the orbit one more time. All right, and now we are time warping at 100,000x. And I'm looking for the angle between this and this to be about 44 degrees or so. I wish there was a single key you could hit to kill all time acceleration instead of having to step backwards through it. I also wish there was an in-game tool to tell you these angles. But that's looking pretty close. Yeah, it is. I think that looks very close. So we get zoomed back in. And the other angle we need is the phase angle of 149 degrees from here, if I'm reading that right. So basically, yeah, right about here. As we're crossing the terminator, as we're most of the way across the terminator heading into the night side, that will be when to burn. To burn for Duna. Like I said, I'm using that calculator, and I'll put a link to that page in the description. I have to say that I do think it would be better. Oh crap, what the hell's going on here? A little something missing. It's called the rest of our ship. Okay. Obviously, somewhere there is a bug with time warp. I'm going to end this flight because obviously there is no point in continuing, and I'm going to end this video before I start screaming. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'm out of here.